Some of you here have heard of the name Sister Thea Bowman, who was a Franciscan Sister of Perpetual Adoration from the religious order in La Crosse. And some of you, in fact, probably most of you, have not ever heard of her. In one sense today, the homily is about her life and her experience of the risen Christ. In another sense, it's about your life and my life and our experience of the risen Christ, or maybe our lack of experience of the risen Christ. And yet, in another sense, the homily is really about God's life, the God of the Easter Passover who gives us resurrection both today and into eternal life. Now, my hope is that reflecting on her life will assist each of us to put more meaning into these scriptures and into proclaiming Christ's resurrection by how we live our lives today and tomorrow and in the future. Now, very interestingly, a book about Sister Thea Bowman's life has just been published, and there is a fine review in the latest issue of America magazine, and the book is entitled Thea's Song, The Life of Sister Thea Bowman. I don't have the book. I just discovered this a few days ago, but her picture's on the front cover of America. Now, I had the privilege and opportunity to know her. I did not know her well. I knew who she was. She knew who I was. You know, we had met. But God really helped to form me with resurrection life because of her, and that's what's important. She was born Bertha Bowman in 1938 in Canton, Mississippi. She would be 72 years old now, or 72 years young, if she continued to be alive on planet Earth, but she's alive in heaven. The area of her hometown was part of the fertile Delta area of Mississippi, where in the 1800s there were huge plantations because the soil was so rich. And it took an enormous number of slaves to keep the money flowing and the crops harvested. And well into the 20th century, the descendants of these slaves labored as sharecroppers for very little wages to keep this whole process going. So consequently, this area that she was born into was an area of the South with some of the most rigid and harshly enforced Jim Crow laws and social practices. Bertha was an only child who came late in life, and her parents certainly blessed her. They provided a loving home. The parents were not Catholic, and if you haven't figured out so far, they were black. Now, the Franciscan Sisters of Perpetual Adoration had opened up a mission school in Canton, and I don't know the year, 20s, 30s, for both blacks and whites, and this would be very early in this process. And they set an example that moved Bertha at age 15 in 1953 to come to La Crosse to join the Franciscan Sisters there, and she did. She was professed in 1958 and took the name Sister Thea. And she remained very dedicated to her religious life, and particularly with the challenge of being an African-American woman in an all-white congregation. She was the only black sister. Now, the Second Vatican Council, 1962 to 1965, provided an opportunity for Sister Thea to bring together the spiritual religiosity which she had learned as a kid, together with her remarkable intellect and a fierce devotion to the Catholic faith. And right now I'm remembering that I skipped a point. And the point is that her parents sent her to the Holy Child Jesus School in Canton. And in that process, her parents became Catholic, and she became Catholic with them. So, she earned her doctorate in English at Catholic University in Washington in 1972, and then she went on to teach and to chair the the English department at what is now Viterbo University in La Crosse. And her life as a graduate student in Washington exposed her to the intellectual ferment of the civil rights movement, and she met men and women across the world, and the seeds were planted for her pulling together the African American expression, not just intellectually, but also in Catholic worship and cross-cultural awareness. And she achieved international renown. She had a fantastic voice. And through song and dance and body movement, she really helped people to experience what resurrected life was about. Now, would that Sister Thea Bowman were with us now. She died of cancer at an early age in 1990. And for me, her life is a very strong symbol of Easter and the resurrection. And the timing of this book review was just perfect. I'm going to order the book. Now, a couple notes I want to add. I was in campus ministry at UW La Crosse from 1975 to 1982, and part of an ecumenical movement with other campus ministers, we sponsored a Martin Luther King observance regularly. And in either 1980 or 1981, it was held at the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse, and we invited Sister Thea and the Alleluia Singers, as they were called, to be part of that, which they did. What I found out immediately afterwards is she had received a death threat a couple days before that, but they continued on. Then, the second personal note is that I was able to be present when she had the last performance of music and dance, and it was in La Crosse in 1989, and I'd really like to experience that again. Father Thomas Finucane, whom some of you know, has a story about her. It was right after Easter, and he was reading, it wasn't Easter Sunday, but shortly after when they were having the appearance narratives, and he was reading the gospel of one of the appearances. I don't know which one. And he thought he was doing pretty good with a lot of expression, but during the gospel, she got up, came up to him and said, "Father Finucane, you got to put more life into that. Let me do it." So she took the gospel book and did it. And by the way, he tells that all the time. I'm not, that's no secret. Okay. So how do we connect with the scriptures of today? I see it this way. First reading. Many signs and wonders were done among the people. And God did many signs and wonders through her. God is doing many signs and wonders today. We just have to have our eyes of faith open. The second reading, be not afraid. Those words which Pope John Paul II picked up and used so often. The gospel, peace be with you, 3 times. As the Father has sent me, so I send you, Jesus said. And then I see Sister Thea as Thomas the Apostle, but I also see us today with those words, my Lord and my God.